Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Beyond Sundays. My name is Alex Suber. I am with my amazing wife, Hannah, who's going to be with me today. And this is part 2 of our conversation on a relationship roadmap for being single, dating, marriage as Christians. So if you haven't seen part 1 yet, pause this, go back, watch part 2. We're going to release them at the same time. And in this episode, we're going to be talking a lot about engagement and marriage. So just to dive straight in, we have a pretty interesting...
Just to dive straight in, sex. I'm just kidding.
Sex. Don't do it. Don't do it.
You will die.
If you didn't watch the first episode, that's the type of churches that we grew up in, the type of youth groups. Here's the message today, kids. Okay, let's just be honest. You can skip this part if you don't like this, but we would have the youth pastor would come in and be like, "You see this ring right here? This is my license to have sex anytime I want."
I don't know why they would make it.
But you can't have it.
They would make it so uncomfortable.
Oh, so uncomfortable. And that's a pet peeve of art. The whole talking about bedroom stuff on the stage and everything. Like me and you
don't do
at least personal stuff. Yeah, it's weird. Anyway. So talk about engagement, marriage, and our story is pretty interesting. I mean, everybody's story is interesting, how people get together, but actually our entire time of dating and up until about 3 months before we got married, 3-4 months before we got married, we were long distance.
Yep.
So you were over in your wilderness season in the great desert of Australia at Bible college there.
Yeah.
And I moved around a little bit, but I was mostly here in Austin getting ready to plant Oasis with my parents. And so, we saw each other. I think, I went there twice. You came back home 2 or 3 times. We got to spend a holiday season together, which was great. I think that was it was like 6 weeks or something we got to spend together. That's when we got engaged. Mm-hmm. But we got engaged and it was like, all right, you're going back to Australia.
Yeah.
So, we had an interesting engagement, but I want to talk about engagement a little bit because, and we mentioned this a little in the first episode. I think so many people, when they're dating, but especially when they start getting serious dating, if they've been dating a long time, and then if they get engaged, when they get engaged, it's like they start acting like they're married.
Yeah.
And, there's some good sides to that. Like I mentioned in the sermon, maybe, start talking, figuring out your finances together, like how you're going to do that, different things, but I think there's some things that people do too fast, too soon. And I know this is something you're really passionate about. So why don't you give us your 2 cents?
Well, I just feel like sometimes, it can be done correctly. I just think that sometimes we get so caught up in the future of the relationship that we miss out on what now has to offer. And when you're in that engagement season, you're going through so much. I mean, you're planning a wedding, you're still getting to know each other. Especially for us, we hadn't spent that much time actually in the same place, which we had talked about everything because we had FaceTime, but I just think that you miss out on so much when you rush and you focus on after the wedding and what things are going to be like in the future. You start acting married already. We've had a lot of people that we know who get engaged or even while they're still dating, and they're just like, they just rush so fast, and it's like you're really missing out on what this season has to offer and what you could be learning about this person because you've just already decided, well, this is going to be my husband, so I see him as what I've perceived him to be in my mind and what my perception of how he's going to be as my husband, which, surprise, there's going to be a lot of things that you didn't know about the person that you married that you still have to learn. So when we just ignore everything else and are like, okay, yeah, this is who I'm marrying, so it's a done deal. He's going to do this, he's going to do this. This is it. It's harder to learn later because you chose not to in the engagement season or the dating season because you just were so busy assuming that. And we were really, really big on that. Definitely didn't do a lot of things perfect, but we did save a lot of things for when we were married, and I'm glad that we did.
Yeah. I mean, we both saved, sex until we were married. That's a huge important one. But even while we were until we were engaged, we didn't specifically talk about specifics of, with children and with different things and I think this is something that you showed me, and maybe not necessarily a male female thing, but I think could probably be more of a female thing, is you didn't want to emotionally get that attached talking about what our children were going to look like and what we're going to do when we retire and all these different things for the potential of, we could break up a week before the wedding or something like that.
Because that's real.
It happens all the time.
It does.
And so, I have so many friends that broke up during engagements. And so it was like, hey, this is a way I'm trying to protect, myself and something.
Because he wasn't my husband yet.
Yeah. And something, I think that's why we need to talk about these relationships. And I'm hoping to be able to teach on this a little bit more throughout this series, is I think we need to focus on more protecting and kind of preserving ourselves versus trying to heal after we go through a trauma or a breakup or a divorce or a heartache. Like if we would do more work on the front end, really getting to know ourselves, really getting to know the other person, maybe we wouldn't have to go through some of those things. It's that old saying or whatever, it's like, don't like drink the poison and then be like, oh, well, I got an antidote, I can fix it. It's like, no, just don't drink the poison. But I want to talk specifically about marriage, because I think our generation, millennials, Gen Z, marriage is something that's like, most people are like, the divorce rates, I don't even want to get married. I saw what happened to my parents. I saw what happened to my friends. It's so expensive. I don't even have time for another person. But not that everybody is called to be married, but the Bible does say that marriage should be honorable, that it should be honored by all. And so I think marriage is a very beautiful thing. And the way that I said it in the sermon is that marriage is the ultimate relationship that you can have with another human being, the ultimate relationship that you can have between a man and a woman. Now, it's not the ultimate relationship, because that should be your relationship with God. And when people make it the ultimate relationship, that is already setting you up for a lot of issues. But it should be the ultimate relationship. Like, I think that's why, and some people would disagree, but it's like, when people prefer, whether it's friends or family or whatever over their spouse, like, there's some balance there. But once you become married, it's like, you guys are one unit. And we've been through some very difficult things with people that are very close to us, where we just had to be like, hey, y'all can't like try to come at us separately. Like we're one person. And we haven't talked a whole lot of Bible, but Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, where it talks about this, where it says, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they'll become one flesh. And so it's this ultimate relationship. But let's talk a little bit about how people can put marriage as such a high goal and a high thing in their life that it ends up, they miss out on so many other things that God's called them to do, or so many other things they put in their life. So maybe you want to take that because one thing I said again is like, it's this ultimate relationship, but it's not the ultimate goal of our life, because, people, you could get married at 18, 25, 46, 77, whatever.
Yeah.
And if that's your ultimate goal, then like once you get married, it's like, well, what's next? And I think a lot of people, they're just, we got to get to the wedding day. We got to get to the wedding day. And you already mentioned there's a lot of stress in that. Usually there's a lot of money involved. Like I officiate weddings for people here in Austin that I don't know, because it's such a wedding industry, and I'll just show up and people can be stressed out of their minds. There's the families don't like each other. It's a big day, but that's just like day one. That's just the very start. So it can't be our ultimate goal in life. Like it can't be like, this is everything I'm trying to do with my life is just get married. So you have some thoughts on that? You want to just jump in?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think, you have to look at it as, or what helps us and what I try to encourage like friends that I have that are still single is, God already knows when you're going to get married, who the person is, and all of those things. He already has that. He knows what your future looks like already. Mm-hmm. But there's things that he's still teaching you before you get there. So if you are wanting to rush that or are discounting the seasons that come before that, mm-hmm. you're always going to keep changing. And mm-hmm. like we've learned that about each other, even being married. It's like mm-hmm. every season I change, Alex changes, mm-hmm. like parenthood changes us. Mm-hmm. But it goes for the same before you find your person. You're going to go through so many things that are making you into the person that you're going to be when it's time for that person to enter your life. And a lot of times we see friends go through the same thing over and over and over again, because sometimes God's like, okay, I'm just going to keep, how many times do you want to try to learn this? How many times do you, and that's why a lot of times we see people in our lives date the same kind of girl or the same kind of guy, and they end up in the same cycle over and over, because God's not going to bring you the person that he has for you, or the person that you decide to be with. He's not going to bring that person when you haven't learned these things yet.
Yeah. Why would he mess up their life? And why would he put them in a bad situation just to bring comfort to you? And I know that can sound harsh, but it ties in with one of the things we talked about, and you just mentioned it. A lot of times you see people, and again, to the outside world, we're like, what? Like, it's so obvious that you are going after the same person, and it ends up messed up every time. But I think that's the reason is, and it's not original to me, it's been said by a million preachers, but is a lot of people, they're not actually looking for a spouse, they're looking for a savior. They're looking for someone that can save them financially, someone that can save them emotionally, someone that can save them from their current friend group. They want to, somebody that can kind of take them to another group, or, all these different things.
Yeah.
Maybe not like a savior, like eternally, but they're looking for someone that's going to come and fix me, come and fill this void. And so, that's why you'll see again, and they may never admit it, but what reason they go after the same type of person is because that type of person is filling something in them that they need to figure out for themselves, between them and God, and fix that, so that you don't need another person to fill that for you.
I think God, what he does is, before we are joined with our future spouse, or before we find that person, he is giving us opportunities to learn to trust him and not need a person to fix our problems. So it's like, how many life lessons or opportunities is he going to place in our lives to show us, I'm the one you need to lean on. I'm the only one who can emotionally fill your needs. I'm the only one who can place worth and value on you. And that was something that when Alex and I were dating, it was like, it was so apparent for both of us that I did not need him to fill my emotional needs when we were dating. I did not need him to. There were things that we were so solid in relying on God for, that we didn't put that unnecessary responsibility on each other, which now we're married and I need him, and I need him,
and that's how it's supposed
because
to be.
we're married and
we're one flesh.
We're
now.
one flesh. He's my husband, and we do fill each other's needs. But I think that you have to be whole. It's like that whole saying, someone doesn't complete you, they complement you, but you're not looking for another half. You're two whole people coming together. And however long it takes you to be whole on your own, God's not going to do that to you. God's not going to bring another person, into your life when it's just going to take more of the focus off him because you're not ready. So it's like, why would he push you further away from him by giving you somebody you're not ready for?
Right. And we definitely, like you said, we need each other so much now.
We do.
And even when we were dating, we mentioned this in the previous episode, I'm very open with just struggles I've had, and I can be very insecure and get very pessimistic and sad and these different things. And so I'd kind of want you to, and you definitely would, but you would also remind me like, hey, like, I'm not that person for you right now. Like, and ultimately, even still, like now that we're married, we have like our son right now, Major, is in the neonatal ICU.
Yeah, that's what this is for.
So he's in the hospital still. We're not sure how much longer. And, even though we're married, and yes, we of course always would want to support each other. When you're married, there's going to be times where you're both stretched, where you're both tired, where you're both emotionally messed up, you're both sad, you're both whatever. And if you're like always thinking that this person is going to come and fix me, then when they don't, then I think that's where, not so much on the sexual side, but on the emotional side and stuff, that's where people start to think, did I marry the wrong person? There's a coworker at work that like, they always listen to my problems, and they always and so because we're going to them as a savior, and they're not. And again, it's not how it should always be in marriage.
Yeah.
But just a practical, like you were in the hospital for like a couple of days, like you were, taking medicine and having to get up and do all, like, I'm not going to come to you and be like, oh, I had such a bad day today. Like, I know you would do your best, but like really when it comes down, you were not in a place, even just physically, like you were sleeping most of the day. Like you couldn't, be there and pat my back and scratch my back.
Let's be real. I was high on narcotics.
Yeah, let's be real. Prescribed.
Prescribed.
Don't flag us, YouTube. And so, but that's how it can, and I even, through friends or people, people will get, well, they didn't do this or and yeah, we all get frustrated at times, whatever. But again, that shouldn't be something that you have to get from them. Like you should be going to God first before you're going to them. And I think I kind of mentioned that towards the end of the sermon, but and I love what you said about the whole complimenting thing of, if I feel like there's something missing in me, I have to keep going back to God for that. Yes, bring your spouse in the loop and like, let's talk about it. Let's pray about it together. Let's help each other. We are the exact opposite personalities. And so a lot of times she can see things from a different perspective and give me perspective and different things like that.
And you do the same for me.
I try. But ultimately, like that thing has to be from God. And so
it's like what you said on Sunday. A lot of the problems that married couples deal with, it's a single person issue. It's not a married person issue.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's on me, and Alex and I apologize to each other so much. And I'll just be like, I know that I'm being ridiculous right now, but I'm still going to tell you what I'm feeling. But just so you know I'm wrong. But let me get this out.
Yeah.
And then I know this is something that I have to fix. And this is because of X, Y, Z. But I think you said this on Sunday, utilize the time right now that you have when you're single to address those things. And
yeah, if you're single and you're watching this, let's shift gears for a second, and I want to get back, and we've talked about it several times, but again, I just see it in we don't do a ton of marriage counseling because with the laws in Texas and stuff, a lot of times we send people to professionals, but when we're just out at dinners and different things, again, so many people get caught up in this idea of marriage is the goal, and they don't have a goal for themselves. And so I think one thing that attracted me to you, and I think attracted you to me and me to you, we'll get that right, is that we were both like doing what we were going to do outside of each other.
Yeah.
So we were
regardless.
Both, because for those that don't know, we didn't meet while we were long distance. We had met several years before. I was youth pastor for a season at the church where Hannah's younger brother was in the youth group at the time. And so we just kind of casually talked. We didn't even get each other's numbers, all that thing. But we had been kind of watching each other on social media and stuff for 3 or 4 years by the time we actually started like talking.
Yeah.
And so we both already knew just from that kind of like observation, oh, they're doing their thing. And something that we would tell each other all the time is, I don't need you, I want you. Like I don't need to be with you, I want to be with you. Like I don't need to be with you to fulfill, a sexual urge or to make me feel good about myself or to have money or to have kids or to have whatever. It's like I'm choosing to be with you.
Yeah.
And that may seem like a small distinction, but that is so huge.
It is.
Because if you need that person, then you're going to start to make decisions.
Yes.
And again, when you're married, it's like, okay, we're in it. And I said this on Sunday, if you're married and you're like, maybe I need to be single again. It's like, no, that's not what this is. But when you're married, but when we were getting ready for marriage, and what led us to marriage is we had goals that were kind of bringing us to a point. And we were like, okay, well, we're headed the same direction.
Yeah.
And we've been watching each other, and you're going to do your thing, I'm going to do my thing. Why don't we just do it together?
Exactly. And I think that it takes such a big leap of faith to have that mindset, to be like, okay, well, regardless of who you have for me, I'm going to chase this thing that you've placed on my heart. And what's even crazy now looking back, all I knew is I was like, okay, I want to be in full-time ministry. I don't know what it's going to look like. What am I good at? Music. Okay, God, what do you want me to do? Am I going to be touring? Am I going to be on a worship band that's like What am I going to be doing? I had no idea. I just knew I have to chase this thing, and God, you'll reveal to me the details later.
Right.
And that's what he did.
And you weren't going to get off course for me.
I wasn't going to get off course for Alex.
Perfect example is
yes.
we were dating, and very serious dating, and you had done 2 years of Bible college, and you were kind of deciding whether you want to do the third year or not, and you were like, hey, I'm doing the third year. And of course, I mean, she'd kind of mentioned it a little bit, and I was kind of secretly praying like, Lord, let your will be done, but I pray that your will is she comes home. But again, it would have been so easy for you to be like, well, what do you think about me doing a third year? And me be, and again, not even consciously like trying to be manipulative or whatever, and be like, well, babe, I mean, you've been there 2 years. Is a third year really gonna make that big of a difference? Like, hey, we're starting this church here. Like, you can already come get involved here.
And you want to know what's crazy?
Yeah.
Is that my third year was whenever God made it very obvious to me that pastoring was in my future. So had I said, okay, I'm dating this guy and I just want to be with him, why would I stay a third year? I don't need to. I would have missed out on what God prepared me for to be his wife. So that's just a crazy full circle, because my third year was a lot of my coaches and teachers looking at me and saying, hey, I know you're focused on music. That's awesome. We're still going to do that. But we actually want you to do this. And
because up until that point, you're like, I'm going to be a vocalist.
Yeah,
I'm going to be a singer-songwriter.
Like, worship leading is my thing. But people kept giving me pastoral roles. And yeah, I was leading worship at chapels and stuff. And it was great. And I was learning. I learned a lot about music while I was there. But God made it very clear to me that pastoring people was going to be my future. And had I said, no, I don't need to go stay for a third year, and just completely made that decision based off of our dating relationship, I would have missed out on crazy situations and things that God used to prepare me to be in the season that I am right now as your wife, as a pastor.
Wow. I've never even really thought about that before.
It's really, really crazy. So had I not put God first and said, okay, I'm not going to change what you've already set me out to do for what's convenient with my relationship with Alex, because we weren't married yet. We were still dating. So what if I would have stopped and said like, okay, I'm just going to take this leap of faith because this guy could be the one. And then we didn't even end up together. That was how my mind was working. It was like, until you make it clear, you haven't told me to change my plans. So I'm going to keep doing what you want me to do.
Yeah. And as we're kind of wrapping up, and we're going to do a whole week on marriage, so we'll really be able to dive into a lot about marriage. But I think even when you get married, because we've talked a lot about kind of before the marriage, but even when you get married, it's so important to continue to own your own goals and your own ideas and different things, and support each other. Because again, me and you, we have different personalities, we have different tastes, different things. And so we're always going to be in it together. But even when you're married, there's the temptation of like, well, like, I don't really know, they don't really seem as excited about it as I am, or they don't really seem, even if they're supportive, kind of just they're like, okay, baby, if you want to do that type of thing. But again, you can't just be like, okay, well, now I'm married. Now we're just chilling here now. It's like, no, I'm still running after what God's called me to do. It's just we're doing it together. Yeah. And we get to have what I said in the sermon was, we get to have a lot of the rewards of a marriage, which, physical intimacy is a part of that, but such a small part of it. Yeah. Of, and this is something I'm definitely going to preach on, but, knowing that you have a person that if you're truly committed to each other, truly in a covenant together, we've gone through things where it's like, they're not going to leave me, because we're all really messed up, even though we don't want to admit it. We all have really bad days. And so just having that, the biblical godly reward of, even if I fail at my goal, even if my business fails, and I know this isn't the situation for everyone, but this is what God would want for your marriage, is that this person is not going to leave me. Like we can cry together about it. We can get mad together about it. Like we can, go out and just blow a bunch of money we don't need to blow because we're upset or whatever. but we're still going after those goals. And yes, there's rewards to it. There's blessings to it. It is different than when you're doing it together as dating. God puts I think God puts a grace on it when you're married. I think maybe some things, our son's waking up. I think God, when you're married, God puts a grace on you to understand your partner a little bit more.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're dating and they make a decision, you're kind of like, I don't really know. But when you're married, again, because you come together as one flesh, God gives you a grace for that. So we're going to go ahead and end the episode because our son is awake and
he's singing in his crib.
Yeah, he loves to sing. You may have picked up on it a little bit, but hope you guys enjoyed this. I know we're a little bit, this is a lot to talk about. We're going to be doing a lot of these, especially during this relationship series, a lot of these podcasts, just going through different situations, different scenarios, maybe drilling down a little bit more on specifically, like questions that I have that I'd love to talk about, and even maybe bring in some other people.
We should do a Q&A one.
Yeah, a Q&A, and how do you if you're a Christian, how do you navigate dating apps and things like, because it's just, there's so much out there.
Comment questions you guys have.
Yeah, comment any questions, any concerns, any corrections. That's what I always say.
Obviously, we're not experts.
We're not experts, but thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, all that sort of thing, and we'll see you next time.